First thing is my apologies. I don't speak Portuguese. I only speak English. So please excuse me. The topic today is, I think, very much interesting to those who are in the petroleum sector. But I think Bernardo put a very good link there to show why you need to understand where the crude market is heading to, because at the end of the day, that affects everything else. It's sort of the horse that leads the whole cart. To kick off, this is what I'm going to talk today. What I mean by pricing efficiency in the new oil order, and also try to define what the new oil order is. And the most important thing, or one of the biggest distractors in the oil market today is it's come 2020, or what we call MARPOL 2020, some call it IMO 2020. And then there is a big question mark, Is there a tool that Brazil could use to develop a very a robust pricing structure for its crude oil markets? Because as you know, Brazil is already one of the largest crude oil producers in the world. The question has always been, are they producing it and selling at the most efficient levels that they can do? And I can tell you the answer is no at this point in time. Okay. Now, and how can Brazil attain that kind of a status? Okay. And you will see that as I go through the presentations, why it's very important for Brazil to have a benchmark status. Okay. Now, just to keep Brazil in perspective, it's the third largest crude oil producer in this region, after the US and Canada. I would say Brazil has even overtaken Mexico, slightly more than Mexico. Okay, but I'm pairing it together because on average they look together, but I think in this year Brazil may overtake Mexico. It has definitely overtaken Venezuela, and Venezuela's production is either 1 million barrels a day or slightly less than 1 million barrels a day. And Brazil produces, within OPEC, if you put Brazil within the OPEC basket, they are like the 6th largest producer. So you're a force to be contended with, okay? And Brazil produces a crude, what we call in the crude oil market parlor, it's called a medium sweet crude. A crude that every refinery in the world today would love to have that hands on. Of course, at the right price, okay? Now, in order to market these crudes, you need a proper medium to price them. As it stands today, Brazil does not have it. It is not just, it doesn't have the market. It's because of some, what I would say, environmental regulations that prevent it from doing it so. Okay? And of course, when you have one single dominant player, it tends to result in such pricing inefficiency. Now, what is the new oil order? And why am I talking about the new oil order today? Back in December 2015, a very important announcement was made without much fanfare. Okay? That is, the US permitted crude oil exports to take place. Now, you may not think it's a big deal. It is a big deal. Okay? That was the last jigsaw in the whole puzzle to create pricing efficiency along all 3 continents, Asia, Europe, and the Americas. Prior to that, it could not do anything. Okay? So you see how the exports have taken place. If you look at crude and product exports today, about 7 million barrels a day, all within 4 or 5 years. And crude, funnily, 3 million barrels a day 2 weeks ago, within 2 years. Okay? Why is that possible in the US? And why haven't we seen similar developments in other parts of the world? It's because of the pricing efficiency of the crude oil market in the US. Okay? When you have a pricing efficiency in any country for that matter, the first thing it does is it resolves any form of disparities in the marketplace. Okay? It takes out the inefficiencies, and it creates incentive for investments to get into the market. And that's what happened in the US. I can tell you today, you can talk to any person in the US, the amount of money that has gone into the infrastructure development in the Gulf Coast, that is Texas and Louisiana, more Texas than Louisiana, is close to $1 trillion. Pipelines, tanks, terminals. Now, all that would never have taken place if not for this price efficiency. And if you look at crude oil exports, in a matter of 2 years, okay, I mean, if permitted today, the US would be exporting like 5 million barrels a day. It is just holding back because of the lack of logistics. The US, despite being the largest consumer of oil, never had a terminal that could go export crude from on a VLCC. VLCC is the most cheapest form of transportation. Not until very recently. But in the 2 years since, or 2.5 years now, you see the exports have run up to 3 million barrels a day. And it will continually increase. And if you see all the news reports, just today, Tallgrass announces a pipeline from Cushing to Louisiana. Now that means that terminal out there will be able to accommodate Canadian crudes and crudes from the Midwest into Louisiana and put on a VLCC for sailing to Asia, Europe, or wherever it wants to go to. Okay. This is what I mean by the new order. Okay. In the old days, right up to 2016, you can transact Brent and WTI, but you cannot move a barrel of WTI out of the country. Okay. You could trade Brent and Dubai and move crudes, physical crudes back and forth. But what that legislation in December 2015 did was it brought order to the marketplace. It made the markets more efficient. So if there's any form of distortion in any part of the world, these distortions are acted upon immediately. Just imagine if you had a stool with 3 legs. You take out one leg. Can the stool ever be stable? Without doubt, it's never going to be stable. But if you put that leg back, it brings stability to the marketplace. Now, don't mistake stability with high prices. Okay? Stability means if one place, the whole tandem, the whole market will move in tandem. That's what stability means. Prices are totally different. Why prices run up? It's not because you have all that coordination between the 3 major benchmarks. Okay? Don't get it wrong. Now, you may ask me, so why don't this stop the market from moving higher? The market is moving, not moving, I mean, it is almost double in a year. It's double in a year because we are still short on supply. The 2 to 3 years between 2014 and 2016, almost $1 trillion of investments in the petroleum sector has been taken out, mostly in the upstream sector. Now, when you take that out, okay, you're going to short the market by an estimated million barrels a day of crude oil supply. That is the problem today. Okay, if the globe is consuming about 102 million barrels a day, we are only supplying it with 101 million barrels a day. Okay, and this will continually grow because demand is fast outpacing supply. When that happens, prices run up. And worse still, in a tight market like what we have today, okay, IMO 2020, along with any form of geopolitical event, you will see the market spiking. Okay, spikes only take place in that, whether it's Libyan ports being shut, Iran being taken out of the market, whatever the case may be, or a Saudi tanker being shot at, doesn't matter. The tightness will result in this sort of spikes. Can you roll the slides forward, please? No. Okay, now we come to another event that takes place in 2020 that is, even though it's a very innocuous development, That is to lower the sulfur content in bunker fuel from 3.5 to 0.5%. Very simple, just cut sulfur. But the problem with that is, as you know, in global economic terms and conditions, practically every product produced in the world goes on board a ship to a destination. Okay. Everything. Ship movement is the key in the global economy. Okay. We did a study at the end of 2017, using 2017 as the base price. Our projections showed us that as it stands, the price of bunker fuel beginning 2020 is going to go up by 53%. Okay. And that would, if you convert that, of at least 10% inflationary trends. Okay. Now, how that inflationary trend kicks in, no ship owner is going to absorb that high prices. It's you, me, and everybody in this room who's going to absorb that high cost. Because ship owners will pass on that cost. Now, this will have global implications. Global economies will suffer. And then when the markets get inflationary, the brakes are put in to slow down the run-up on prices. Now, that can hurt the market itself. In this regard, it is my understanding and opinion that this is where we can see markets rushing up very high. Because this development in itself is going to result in a huge demand for certain products. Okay? And certain products would mean the Brazilian production of medium sweet crudes. Brazil's medium sweet crude could meet this requirement. Okay? But then the refiners will start paying a higher premium for such crudes to produce low sulfur bunker fuels. And one of the components that's going to drive this move towards lower sulfur bunker fuels is gas oil. In Asia, we call it gas oil. In US, in Europe, and this part of the world, they call it diesel. Okay. Diesel is expected to make up for that shortfall in supply of low sulfur bunker fuels. And this is the chart that our analytics team put up together. In the 3.9 to 4 million barrels a day of bunker consumption, we believe distillates for blending, low sulfur fuel oils can only meet up to close to 1 million barrels a day of demand. The rest has to be met by putting in gas oil. Okay. That means you require roughly 3 million barrels of diesel to make up for that shortfall. And the world is not prepared to produce 3 more million barrels a day of diesel. And as you know, the world does not produce 0.5% or 5,000 ppm diesel anymore. Everybody is producing ultra-low sulfur diesel, which is more expensive than even 0.5% diesel. So these high prices are going to kick in. And remember, diesel is the king of the barrel. Diesel is not only a transportation fuel. Diesel is used for power generation. Diesel is used for mining. Diesel is used for various industrial purposes. Okay? Can you imagine if diesel went up 30%? Okay. Now, there is the possibility of a scenario whereby at the peak of the diesel demand, crude oil prices can go up to $100. Okay. Nothing to hold this market back. The bullish side is that they're very conservative. They don't think that they don't want to see the markets run up to that level because it causes its own consequences. On the other side, people are saying, watch out for a collapse. So long as the market is imbalanced, where demand is greater than supply, markets cannot collapse. Unless you find a cheaper form of production for crude oils, which I doubt is going to happen in the next 2-3 years. Okay. So we are going to be net deficit, and we are going to see prices run up. And as Bernardo said, If crude runs up, it drags naphtha along, and naphtha will drag all its other comparative feedstocks together. Okay? That's the chain reaction you're going to see. Now, like I said, bunker fuels run up 50%, inflation kicks in, and this affects global economy. Okay? This is in addition to what Trump is doing today, creating an unnecessary trade war. Here I'm speaking my mind, I'm not speaking at S&P Global, PLATTS, but trade wars don't benefit anybody. We all end up as losers. Okay. Now, moving to Brazil. I mentioned medium sweet crudes. Medium sweet crudes are crudes somewhere in the 30 APIs to 32 APIs with 0.5% and less sulfur. Okay. For the last 2 years, because of the reduction in sulfur in most transportation fuels, diesel, gasoline, what has resulted is refiners are finding it very hard to produce low sulfur diesel or low sulfur gasoline, and they require some amount of low sulfur crudes to be put into the refining system. Prior to that, they could run a very heavy sour crude and come up with the required products, but not today. Okay? That is why you see the US refiners who are known to be running the most heaviest and dirtiest crudes to put in some of their own domestic light sweet crudes into their own refining slates. Okay? So what is happening to Brazil? Okay? In the last 15 to 20 years, any refinery built is based on medium sour crude economics. Okay? Not the crudes that is produced by Brazil, but the crudes produced by Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Abu Dhabi, and so on. Okay? But what has happened is, with the cut in sulfur, every refinery today is looking for medium sweet crudes. Okay? The more sophisticated. Every refinery that's built in the last 15 years is very sophisticated. Forget the teapot refiners in the US, people who just put up a tower and call it a refinery. That's not a refinery. In today, when you say a refinery, it is a highly complex refinery. That means the amount of fuel oil produced by the refinery is close to zero. Okay? Or what Bernardo called bottomless refinery. Okay? Now, this means the global refining sector is going to turn its focus to looking for sweeter crudes. And sweeter crudes come from very small locations. Okay? The coast of West Africa does produce some amount of medium sweet crudes. Brazil is one of the largest there, along with the Americans. Okay? So this is where the demand is going to set in. And as we speak today, crudes exported by Brazil is already fetching premiums that they never saw before. And it's all because of this demand for lower sulfur crudes. And this crude can go in today. You can take it's no more Lula, but you could take those crudes and put it as bunker fuel. So these crudes, it's not only in demand by the refining sector. It will also be in demand from the bunker sector. The greater the demand from different sectors, the higher the price. Because then one another has to compete to buy that crude. Okay? Now, can Brazil reach that level where they can realize what we call market value? As it stands, it's not possible. Okay? Because it is dominated by a handful of players. To be honest, 2 players. You can never have pricing benchmarks with 2 players dominating the market. Okay? And you're never going to get the type of investments needed when you have 2 players dominating the scene. Okay? You can never have investors because nobody knows what they're putting their money for. Or what is the return on the values for the investments? Nobody knows. So you're not going to be in a position to attract investments. Okay. Now, when I say pricing benchmarks come with some kind of obligation on the part of the country to maintain market-based pricing structures. This is very important for Brazil if it wants to join the big league. If it's happy with the 2 million barrels a day it's producing, that's fine. Okay? But even then, even the 2 million barrels a day needs to be priced appropriately so you get value for that crudes. Okay? If you don't, it's fine. And as we talked about, with the Americans getting into the marketplace as exporters of crude oil and refined products, they're going to start competing with other refiners. As it is, the Americans are already exporting any type of crudes. They're just not exporting light sweet crudes. They're exporting medium sour crudes, which is the crudes that's produced by Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, and Iran. So they're competing with those guys for a market share. And in some places, like in South Korea, the biggest refiner, SK Energy, have terminated their term deals with the Saudis. Why? Because they can buy it cheaper from the Gulf Coast. So you find trading patterns are changing. And if Brazil doesn't change its pricing structure, it's not going to benefit from that. And it's very important for Brazil to move to that stage, because if it ever wants to attract investment, okay, and to move at a rapid pace to develop its hydrocarbon industry, it has to implement practices that allow the market to set the price for its crude. Once that happens, this is what's going to happen. I'm sorry it's red in color, but what does pricing benchmarks really do for the marketplace? Okay, it's not so much having a price which resolves distortion in the marketplace. It's more than that. First thing it does, it sets a structure and an order for prices to be established. Once that happens, okay, without that proper pricing structure, market-based pricing structure, you're never going to know what the forward value of these crudes are. Once the forward value is established, okay, that results in the establishment of a benchmark. And once benchmarks are established, investors know exactly where they're putting their money in and what they can expect to get back. Without that model, nothing is going to change. I know you can claim today ExxonMobil is coming to Brazil. Okay? Yes, they may participate in the next round. But is that all you need? You need more than ExxonMobil to come into this marketplace. You need more than Petrobras. You need more than Shell. You need more than Equinor. You need more than Total. Okay? Just look at how the Mexicans, of course, they've taken a hiatus now. They've slowed down their whole process and they're just waiting for new direction. But look at when they set the auctions up, what kind of players came into it? Okay. You had a range of companies coming into Mexico. Brazil has not reached that target. You may say it's deep sea, pre-salt, hence you need technical expertise. Not true. If you go to the North Sea, you find medium-sized companies drilling in the North Sea. Those players have not stepped foot in the Brazilian area at all yet. The reason why? Because they don't know what the future is. Okay? And you only know the future when you create the structures where your crudes are traded in a free market environment and there's a benchmark established around it. More importantly, the benchmark establishes a financial system that ensures investment comes in regularly and ensures the right type of oil is developed. Okay. That is what Brazil needs today. I mean, this comes back to the US. Why did the US, in a very short period of time, was able to develop its industry and become a giant in the global oil market? Is because of pricing efficiency in the country. Because it does not set the price. The price is set by the market. You may say even today the Brazilian crudes are set by the market. But there are so many hurdles, even they themselves don't know what price they're going to get. Okay. All that need to be dismantled and rebuilt if Brazil wants to join the big league. With that, I want to thank you. And I hope I know it's not a petrochemical, I know this is a petrochemical group of folks, but I thought the oil thing would, give you a different perspective and different light on things. So thank you very much.